the role of the advisors. Because Gillian, as you started describing the process, I'm just thinking I can hear cash registers, bells tilling as the people all being paid extraordinarily high rates are piling in to give advice. Does it need to be that complicated?
I think one thing to bear in mind is often there are different interests. There's the company, there's the asset owners. I think probably the case that's in the kind of public eye, particularly in this country, is Royal Mail, which is another type of IPO we haven't spoken about, but privatisation.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I mean, you've got a company owned by
the government
one shareholder, and they will,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was perhaps where most people got an insight into the fact that there are all these different advisors involved, because the banks are all giving advice. There's also this concept of an independent advisor, which will advise on how you approach the banks and appoint the banks, etc.
So you must be ribbing me. What, you have an advisor to sort of advise you on the relationship with your other advisor? No, that is ridiculous, isn't it? That's
well, not necessarily, because in the case of advisors who come in, one says 30 million, the other says 25, and then you say, well, 45, they come up 40. How do you know that you're getting a fair value for your business if you don't have somebody to stand back and mediate that process? Now, you have to be quite sophisticated with markets to know what you're doing. There are many companies that come to market that don't have that experience, and sometimes they really don't know whether they're hearing it, for fact. So in some cases, I think that has some merit. Unfortunately, it means another hand in the till, but that hand in the till could save you a lot in other fees by equalising the costs of all the other players.
You've got to realise, Evan, that when you embark on this process, you're going to shark investment. These guys don't necessarily have your interests that close to their hearts because they want to earn a fee. They only earn a fee if they get the deal away. And getting a deal away is not the same as getting the right deal away. We did very well. We had some very good advisors, I hasten to add, on the MBA, but they still cost me £35 million to float the AIA.
What was the value again?
We were 1.4 billion market
Right.
cap.
So actually, look, 35 million.
We thought that was reasonable value.
But that's so you're kind of 2%ish,
Yeah.
which is what it costs to pay an estate agent to sell a house.
It can be higher than that, and it depends how many advisors you have, because with large IPOs in the many billions, and depending on how much capital is being raised and so on, you might have a couple of banks who share 4%. So there comes a point where you say, you know what, this capital might be expensive to get, but it brings me an enormous amount of value and I can use it to drive my business and so on. And I think in those situations it makes perfect sense.
And it's not just a one-off transaction. I mean, the IPO itself is, but you then have the ongoing valuing of the company in the market. And if you come at completely the wrong valuation, it's a very difficult starting point. I mean,
The price can drop. 120 million.
And I think that expectation management is one of the key characteristics of a successfully quoted company. You kind of understand how this works, and that starts before the flotation.
In most cases, it's not all a success fee. So you get into this process. There's going to be a fee of maybe about £1 million. I think it is a sort of minimum number that the company needs to sort of consider it's going to have to spend in order to attempt to get listed. And if it fails, you pay that check out to everybody, risk capital.
Yeah. Is there a kind of momentum effect that there's a sort of expectation that you'll have to float that just drives you in that direction? Yes. When it might actually be better to step back.
Absolutely, which is why this advisor of advisors, assuming that they are not incentivized on the flotation, will give you credible advice and say, you know what, it's a good time for you to float.
But the other good thing about being public companies, you can use shares to incentivize staff. So not only the management, senior management, which we've done, but we're also putting share incentive schemes for all our employees, from the office workers to the patrolmen to the very top of the organisation.
And those shares wouldn't work in a private company because the staff wouldn't be able to sell them.
Well, no, I mean, it is a common factor with private companies, and particularly technical companies, because you expect value appreciation in a growth company. And so in my companies, always we've issued share options to staff in private context, and indeed at Power, every single employee has shares.
Do those shares have value only because they expect you to sell the company?
They expect a sale or an IPO or a listing or some event, and that will allow members of staff to then
operating temperature has been reached.
That can be very meaningful.
Let's talk about the sort of life post-float, because it can be a very big culture shock in an organisation. Dan, I think I'm right in saying you didn't really feel it worked, sort of culturally.
There was two factors in my case. The first was I'm an entrepreneur and I speak my mind, which is sometimes difficult for a public company who needs stability and sort of predictability. And so an entrepreneur isn't always predictable and consistent. The second thing is the technology business is always moving forward, and I think the UK market, certainly in those days, was not really accustomed to an internet. We had no idea what an internet business was in 1994, which is a dynamic, fast-moving, fast-paced environment. And then I think the other thing was that for me as an individual, I was unaccustomed to the external factors that impact the business and the share price, because often what happens is it has very little to do with the business that you're running and more to do with macroeconomic factors.
Do you find it hard, Martin, not to look at the share price day by day? It must be very distracting.
Yes, I keep looking at it almost on an hourly basis, which is a very bad thing to do. It's interesting from my perspective because, of course, I come from having worked in private equity, where you sit on the board of a portfolio company, you are a representative of the owner, and you have a very direct relationship with management, and you have power of life and death, frankly. And when you become a public company, it's very, very different. Governance rears its ugly head, rightly so, because we are accountable to a much broader base of shareholders and members of the public and pension funds, etc. But it takes up a lot of time and it takes a lot of resource. So I will probably spend a third of my time during the year talking to shareholders.
You're not even meant to talk to shareholders very much, because you're not allowed to tell them anything.
Well, we are, of
everything you
course.
say has to be in the
We produce our results twice a year, so at the finals and the interims, we then go and spend probably the best part of 4 or 5 weeks talking directly to major shareholders. That takes up a lot of time, which is why Gillian talked earlier about the importance of investor relations. It is a very, very onerous demand on companies.
Many CFOs really enjoy that initial interaction with shareholders and don't really want to let go, but I think you absolutely have to, because otherwise it's hugely time consuming. When we talk about the market, it's a huge market, it's very different types of investors. And I think the other thing we haven't really talked about is there is the IPO, but that sort of competition for capital just continues.
When you say competition for capital, what do you mean?
The share price changes on a daily basis. Investors don't need to hold your stock. They can be holding your stock, they could be holding a different company in a different sector in a different country. And it is a marketplace. If you're not out there making sure your equity story is understood, investors will not have you on the radar screen, and this will have an impact on valuation.
And the institutions, of course, are saying, I've got these shares and I've got these shares and I've got these shares, and I'm going to sell those today and I'm going to buy some more of those. You want to be on the buy list, not on the sell list.
Right. Why, once you've IPO'd, does it matter to you what the share price is? You've sold your shares, the market has them, people who bought them can sell them to somebody else. Whatever price they want to transact them in, you get on with running the company.
No,
Why does it, so just explain.
it is pervasive to every single part of your